Recording in progress.
Hello all, good morning in India. Namaste to everybody. So on behalf of the Young Indian Theosophists, Indian section of the Theosophical Society, I welcome you all for a question and answer session on the topic On Moods by Dr. Annie Besant. This will be a speech on the book named On Moods by Dr. Annie Besant, and it will be followed by a question and answer session. And the speaker of the day will be Brother Pradeep. And I'm Mathurnath, and I will be the moderator of the day. And with me is Brother Shikhar on the IT side. Before we start the introduction of the speaker, let us begin our session with the universal invocation. Please close your eyes, center yourself, take some deep breath, and silently within your mind run these words. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. Be still, be aware, and just run these two lines. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. Please observe silence for a minute or so. Take your time. Gently return to your body. Take your time. Let us now start introducing the speaker for today, Brother Pradeep. Pradeep MS is a master's in biotechnology, working as a business manager for an organic products company, and also a professional consultant for hydroponics. He is a third generation theosophist. He was introduced to theosophy naturally since childhood. He became an active member since 2002 and has been giving lectures at various theosophical lodges in Karnataka. So over to you, Pradeep ji.
Thank you so much, Mathurnath, for your kind introduction, and welcome you all for this study class. Today is a study class on the subject by Dr. Annie Besant, which is titled as On Moods. So this was also published in the ADR pamphlets in the year 1904. It's a very wonderful subject that we're dealing with today, which is unlike all other subjects of the Theosophical Society that we usually deal with. Here, Madam Besant is trying to say something on our moods, our changing moods. So, which is something we come across in everyday, day-to-day life, and which we all face. It's nobody is perfect. Nobody is above these changing moods. And Madam Besant is talking something that we all deal with in our day-to-day life. But at the same time, she also gives us a theosophical way of looking at it, a theosophical way of solving it. So therefore, this study on moods, or this topic on moods by Dr. Besant is something which we can consider as practical theosophy or living theosophy. So Madam Besant, in the beginning, she tries to say give an example of how the masters, the spiritual teachers, the members of the Great White Lodge, they are, in spite of having so much of wisdom, so much of knowledge, so much of work that they have to do in this world, but still they can keep up the love towards humanity, the the love towards each and every individual human being, and to work for them and to sacrifice their own time and their own uh, personality to work for this humanity. So, how is it possible for the great masters or the great teachers of this world to perform this in spite of having so much of work? How could they sustain the love for humans and humanity in general in this world? Every great teacher, whichever religion it may be, whatever teaching it may be, but every great teacher possess this. In spite of huge work and huge knowledge and huge wisdom that they possess, they sustain the love towards the humanity in general. So, how is that possible for all these great teachers, whoever have come to this world, to behave in this manner? So, Madam Besant says that in proportion that we reach the wisdom, which is the realization of one's life, so also must be the proportion with which we manifest the love, which is the unity of that wisdom manifesting itself in the diversity of forms. So it simply means that the proportion of work that we do to gain knowledge and to gain wisdom, the amount of effort that we put, that measure should always be equal to the amount of effort that we should put in order to develop love in this emotional field. Love towards what? Love towards the fellow beings, love towards humanity. So that proportion of effort that we keep should be equal. That that effort which we put in order to gain wisdom of this, wisdom of what? Wisdom of truth, wisdom of religions, wisdom of everything, wisdom of oneself. The amount of effort that we put in our daily life to gain this wisdom, to gain knowledge, to gain experience, should be equally with the effort that we put to develop love and kindness and helping nature towards others in this world, towards everyone whom we meet in this world. Wisdom of the Buddhic plane is the love of the astral or the emotional plane. So the wisdom that which deals with the Buddhic plane of every one of us is the love of the emotional plane. So that means it should reflect as love in the emotional plane. So no matter how much of knowledge and wisdom you gain and how much of Buddhic plane that you try to develop, it's of no use if you don't have love in your astral plane. It's of no use that you have not developed this uh, this uh, this emotional part of yourself to love others, to be kind to others. So, Madam Besant says these two should go hand in hand. The wisdom in the Buddhic plane and the love in the astral plane. You have to work equally for these two things, two aspects. Only then it is of something use uh, in this world. But there is one great obstacle. What is that great obstacle which is not to the wisdom but for the love in the emotional plane? No matter how much of wisdom you gain and you try to reflect that as love in your emotional plane, but there is one obstacle for the wisdom, for the light of wisdom from your Buddhic plane to shine upon your emotional plane and your physical plane. So that obstacle is called as changeableness, or simply it is changing moods. your moods changes, your mood swings. Uh, for example, think about an April day, a day in April, in the month of April. So that month is when there are um, more and more passing clouds, when clouds gather, when it is not completely cloudy, but there are passing clouds, and it's not completely bright sunshine throughout the day. So there are clouds that tries to accumulate, or they keep passing and then they move on. So just imagine such an April day when these clouds try to accumulate, and then you standing at a very higher peak and on top of a hill or a mountain, and then you're watching the beautiful nature from the top of the mountain. So how do you see these passing clouds? So when there are clouds that are passing and there is sunshine in the daytime, so you see a patches of land from top of a hill which gets the shadow, which becomes dark. But at the same time, after some time, they move on, the clouds move on, and the same patch of light, a patch of land gets the sunlight. It shines, right? So the moods are also exactly in the same way. The changing moods are also exactly in the same way. Sometimes you feel the darkness and suddenly you feel the sunshine. So these clouds that keep on passing, they bring about these shadows, they bring about this darkness, and that stage you feel it as a depressed state or an unhappy or a not so comfortable state. But as it passes on, then you feel the bright sunshine, you're happy, you're joyous, you're elated, you don't feel depressed, you feel the enthusiasm. So, all these qualities you feel when there is bright sunshine. So, this kind of swing in the mood, this kind of changing mood is one obstacle, is a greatest obstacle for that light of wisdom to shine upon your physical and astral bodies that you have gained in your buddhic plane. So, what are these changes in the moods? What are these obstacles? How to get rid of these obstacles is what that we will be discussing further. One thing is, the first thing is these swing of moods is like swing of pendulum. The more towards the pendulum swings towards one side, more it swings to the other side. So more the swing of the mood is towards the depression, it equally is more towards the elation or towards enthusiasm. So in the other way, more towards the enthusiasm, if you're more elated, more excited, you feel more of depression as the pendulum, as your mood swings to the other side. So it means if you stretch one side more, you feel stretch on the other side also equally. So the swing or the mood swings are like the swing of the pendulum. So then what causes these mood swings? Why does these mood swings happen? So we need to recognize the reason behind these mood swings. Once we know that they are the obstacles for the light of wisdom to shine upon these emotional and the physical plane, for the light of wisdom that you have gained to work in this physical and emotional field, once you recognize they are the obstacles, then you need to find the causes. What causes these swings in the mood? One thing is the changeability is caused due to the physical nerves. So, your physical body, you all know that the nerves carry messages from the entire body to your brain, and the brain reacts to these messages that are carried from the body and then sends signals equally so that an action is performed in the body. So, you all know that this simple science. So, these nerves in the physical body can bring about these changes in the moods, the first thing. How, how is it possible? I think everyone who know the simple science uh, will know that whenever you are overstressed, whenever you are overworking, whenever you have less of sleep, when you think too much on something, when you are dealing with something which is causing you, making you feel sad, and at all these times, your nerves carry the signal of depression to the brain, and then brain sends back equally signals for less enthusiasm, for fatigue, for feeling tiredness, and all these things follow. So, uh, these depression, elation, irritability, calmness, or anything, all these moods, they depend upon your physical loss, physical body. So you need to take care of your body first. So how do you take care of your body and not allow these mood swings from that is causing from these physical nerves? Is that you have to think about yourself. You need to take care of your body, your health first, and then you need to recognize how much of work is possible for you to do. It's not about how much of work is there, is left to do, but at the same time, you need to recognize of how much of work that your body can take it. So if you know the amount of work or the amount of work that is left and the ability of yourself to perform that job or perform that work, if you can understand these two concepts and then bring a balance about in these two things, only then you will not allow your body to overwork, to get less sleep, to stretch yourself too much until your body stops uh, helping you or stops supporting you, and then enter into a phase of depression or fatigue and tiredness. So we need to recognize our duty first, and at the same time we also should recognize the capacity or the ability of this body that you are carrying to perform any duty or any job, and not to overstretch your physical body to perform any job. And at the same time, Madam Besant says it is quite possible for every one of us to think that all the job that is remaining or that is left to do should be done by you. Madam Besant says many people carry that in this spiritual path, that every job you need to look into that. You need to be the supervisor of that. Everything should happen under your nose, under your supervision. And there are some people who think, who fear for letting others to complete a work, letting others to do a part of it, or letting others to take responsibility of any job. And there are people who always feel only they can do the job in a right way. So Madam Besant says that that is selfishness. It is stretching yourself beyond your capacity is not only harming you, but it is also harming others by taking their opportunity to develop, by taking back, by spoiling their time and opportunity to learn and to develop. So you're not only harming yourself from overdoing, from taking all the jobs for yourself, but at the same time you're not allowing others to develop, others to learn, and then you're not giving chance for others to develop along with you. So that's selfishness. So Madam Besant clearly says that you need to understand your capacity, you need to understand your job, you need to understand you should have a limit for that, and at the same time divide the job or divide the work that you have with your fellow beings or with your team or whatever. And then you need to develop or learn or perform to work in a team along with others. And then in that way, you should stop overstretching yourself, overworking yourself, giving too much of pressure to this body, and then eventually allowing it to break down and enter into a phase of depression. So this is the first possibility or the first cause by which the mood swings, the mood goes into depression, your emotions changes, and you feel sad and unhappy and not enthusiastic. So this is the first thing, that to take care of your body and to not to stretch over self, your body or your physical strength. And then coming to next cause, why the mood swings happen. Madam Besant says the next cause, or the next important thing, is the mood swings that are caused by an increased sensitiveness to superphysical conditions. Madam Besant says there are certain conditions which are superphysical, which are not in your hand, which are beyond this physical world, which happen due to a divine plan. So you have no power to stop them. You have no power to change them. So these are all beyond your physical capacity. So there are things that happen around you which are beyond your own capacity. And then the the effect of those changes, or of those superphysical conditions, the effects of those can cause you feel bad, because as you develop your emotional plane, as you develop your astral plane, you become oversensitive. You can recognize the pain. You can recognize the pain in every small things. And then as you have become oversensitive and you recognize this each and every small pain that is surrounding you, and that oversensitiveness of your emotional aspect of, or your emotional plane, can bring about this mood swing or depression in your physical plane, at your physical level. So why this happens? This happens because as you learn and move ahead in the spiritual path, your every body becomes sensitive. Your physical body becomes sensitive. Your astral body becomes sensitive. Your buddhic plane becomes sensitive. So as they all become sensitive towards every reaction that is happening, your astral body also becomes sensitive. But sometimes it becomes oversensitive. Oversensitive in the sense, react too much, which is more than necessary. So that also can cause a great amount of shadow on this physical body. So most of the times, the depression that caused at this physical level is by the overshadow of the oversensitiveness of the astral plane towards things that you see surrounding us. So what to do? What to do for this? How can we be less sensitive, or should we not be sensitive, or is it uh, how can we stop this oversensitiveness of the astral body to shadow on the at the physical level, to cause depression on your own physical body? So for this, we need to recognize that there is something called an universal law. Madam Besant says there are universal law, and whatever is happening is working to a good purpose and for a good end. So this is the universal law that you need to recognize, because any superphysical, supernatural thing that is out of your control, which is not in your control, which cannot be changed by you, is happening, and your emotions are oversensitive, your emotional plane is oversensitive, and you feel the pain, and that causes a shadow on your physical plane and is causing depression and the change of your mood. So remember that there is an universal law, and whatever is happening is working towards a good purpose and to a good end. Nothing is working for a bad, a destructive end. Things may appear destructive in the beginning, but the end, the final goal is towards a good purpose and for a good end. You recognize this universal truth and then do what? And then sit quiet? No. Once you recognize this, then you cultivate this. Once you cultivate this and make it a habit, then you become fearless. Your mind becomes fearless. So, first you recognize that everything happening is happening for the good purpose and good, for a good cause and a good end. And then you become fearless for the things that's happening around you. Once you become fearless, you're prepared. Then that prepares your emotional or your mind, your mental planes for the things that come, that the things that may come. And once you prepare, only when you prepare, then that will make you find how can you help in that situation. So first thing is anything that is supernatural, that is super physical, that is out of your reach, can cause your oversensitive emotional plane to overreact, and that can cause that can fall as a shadow on your physical plane and cause depression. So to overcome that depression and to overcome that state of darkness in yourself, you need to recognize the universal law that anything happens is for the cause of good, and then you become fearless, and then you get prepared. And only when you get prepared to face anything that happens, only at that stage, the idea of how can I help? What can I help? What can I do in this situation to help others, to help my fellow being, or to help myself to come out of this situation? Only then you can help yourself and others once you become fearless and once you become prepared. And that eventually will stop your mood to go into the depression. And for that wisdom to shine upon you, for the light of wisdom to shine upon you and to give you more ideas of how to help and how to be in a peaceful state. So until you grow beyond to recognize these shadows and not allow them to depress you, until you recognize the powers of the universal law to take its own course, it's better your eyes remain closed. So it means simply to say that until you reach that state, not everyone, it's not possible, it's not easy for everyone to reach that state in the beginning itself. So until you reach that state where you recognize that these are just the shadows from my emotional plane, or these are just passing cloud, or this is just a universal law that is taking its own course for something that is beyond my understanding. So until you reach that state, then keep your eyes closed means uh, not to think that you have nothing to do with that, but keep your eyes closed means think in yourself, be in peace, be in calm, and observe the things that are happening as such. So once you cultivate this habit of observing things, then you will know, you will develop the fearlessness, the uh, and then you try to figure out things that you can do the best at that moment. So this mood swings due to the increased sensitiveness of your emotional field is the second thing that can cause the depression, and then you know how to overcome that. At the same time, these are, of course, these are very less important causes, but Madam Besant said there is one thing which is more important, which is the most, uh, which is the most reason, which is the highest reason for which causes the swings in the mood, and that is, Madam Besant gives us an example of how we work sometimes in this spiritual field. Sometimes we feel so enthusiastic. She gives an example of our own theosophical society, work in our own theosophical society. So she takes this example. She says, sometimes we feel so much enthusiastic, we feel like we want to be involved in every activity. We would like to attend all the meetings. We would like to give speeches, prepare, read books, and prepare notes and do things. Get ourselves involved in the service activities, meditation, yoga, and all these things. Sometimes we feel so enthusiastic, but we all have faced this, that sometimes we feel what we are doing is of no use. Sometimes we feel, why should we do all these things? Sometimes we feel less enthusiastic, and sometimes we don't even see the ideals, behind the reason behind why we are doing it. We don't feel that ideal as much as we feel when we are enthusiastic, and then we lose interest. Sometimes we lose interest. We feel like not to do anything at all, not to read a book, not to attend any speech, not to go for any service activity. We don't even feel like doing meditation or yoga or whatever we are doing. We try to give it up. We sometimes we try to escape into the normal life that we deal with, right? So we all feel that. So Madam Besant says, uh, why do we feel like this? Why do we suddenly, at one point, lose all the enthusiasm, lose all the interest for any ideal or any great thing that we are doing? Why do we feel that? Why do we lose that kind of interest and enthusiasm for anything that we are doing, something which is great? We feel that is great. But at the same time, before we recognize why we feel like that, Madam Besant gives a caution that what we feel does not matter. How we act is what that matters. So what we feel does not matter. How we act under the sway of feelings matters immensely. So, say for example, you feel less interested, you feel less enthusiastic of reading a book or giving a lecture or taking a class, maybe. But what you're feeling doesn't matter. But what you do with that feeling, once you feel less important, once you feel less enthusiastic, if you allow that feeling into action and you give up doing it, you give up attending what you are supposed to attend, you give up um, taking a class or anything, once that comes into action, and that matters a lot, right? Because everyone can see that. Everyone can see that you have promised to do this work, but you're not doing it. You have lost your enthusiasm. You have lost your interest. So once you bring that feeling of less enthusiasm and less interest into action, and once everyone see that, then that matters. So Madam Besant says, what you're feeling inside is not that matters, but what you do with that feeling, how you allow that feeling into an action, is what that matters. Now, she also says that even if you're feeling less enthusiastic, even if you have lost interest, even if you feel um, you don't want to do it, but still, if you can recognize that great ideal, or if you can recognize the purpose for which you have accepted to do that work, and if you can still do it for the sake of doing it for the great ideal, and that devotion is something to be appreciated. Madam Besant is dealing with very basic thing that we all have gone through. Either it is in the work of Theosophical Society or in the work that we do in our daily life, or towards our responsibility to the family, or our responsibility or a behavior towards the society. It can be anything. Sometimes we may not feel the urge, we may not feel the interest, we may not feel the enthusiasm to do something, which is our job. But if we can still do it in spite of our feeling, in spite of our things happening inside us, if we can still perform that for the sake of doing it, by recognizing that great ideal for which we want to do that job, by recognizing that great purpose for which we want to do that job, then that effort, that devotion is something to be appreciated. And she says that, why she's saying this? Because it is quite natural. First thing is to lose interest, to lose enthusiasm for something that we were doing it with a great interest before. But instead of bringing that feeling out into action and to make everyone feel that you have lost interest, instead of doing that, if you can still keep that depressed state of mind for yourself and still work upon doing a job for the sake of doing it for a greater purpose, to remove your own emotions from that and doing the job without your emotion, without your emotions being involved in that, for the sake of doing it for something greater uh, purpose, that which you are not able to recognize at this stage. And that effort is what Madam Besant is talking about. That you can, if you can do that, if you can raise to that level of devotion where you do not allow your own feeling and still can perform a job with same amount of uh, with same amount of devotion, honesty, and zeal, then that is something that we should appreciate, and that is something that we need to achieve. But now she talks about what causes this change in moods. What may cause this change in your own enthusiasm, your own interest? What causes for you to lose your enthusiasm and interest for something that you are being doing? She says that uh, we need to recognize something called the law of rhythm. What Madam H.P. Blavatsky, in her Secret Doctrine, she puts as fundamental truth as the law of periodicity. So, what is this law of periodicity? It is something like day and night. So, day and night is is the universal law. It's a law of periodicity. So, as much as there is day, there is night. So, after every night, then there is again a day. There is again sunlight. So, this is happening according to a plan. So, this happens continuously. So, in a similar fashion, there is a law of rhythm, there is a law of periodicity uh, in every soul, at every level of your bodies, starting from your physical body until your spirit. So, this law of periodicity, it works at every level. So, it's Madam Besant calls it as law of rhythm. So you need to recognize this law of periodicity or the law of rhythm, as Madam Blavatsky puts in her Secret Doctrine. So these moods must take their part in our emotions and intellectual life as inevitably as night and day, and necessary as night and day. Now this is very um, tricky to understand. Madam Blavatsky, in her Secret Doctrine, she says that these moods, these changing moods, that is high of enthusiasm of and low of enthusiasm or lack of interest, these take part in your emotional and intellectual life as inevitably as night and day. So just like there is night and day, and these two opposite moods or the opposite feeling do happen in your emotional and intellectual life as inevitably. You can't change it. It's inevitable. It's not in your hand. And necessarily, because it's happening for a reason. It is necessary to happen. There is necessity of night. There is necessity of darkness. as much as there is necessity of light for this world, for this earth to sustain life. So if there is 24 hours of light, it's not possible. You may say that um, if there is light for all the 24 hours and there is no darkness at all, is it possible for the life to sustain? No. There are activities that happens when there is no light in the darkness, which are as much as important as the activity that happen in the daytime under the sunlight. So that is what Madam Besant is trying to explain to us, that these change of moods or the two opposite kinds of mood, the two opposite kind of situation is as inevitable and as necessary as day and night. So therefore, we need to recognize both the states as necessary and inevitable, which cannot be changed and which is very much necessary, which is not something that you can't select that I want to be enthusiastic, I want to be with high spirits, with high interest all the time, 24 hours by bar 7. No, she says that even you need to have a period of time where you feel less enthusiastic, you feel less interested, you feel like not doing anything. So even that phase is very much necessary. So to recognize these two things as the law of rhythm, the law of periodicity, as day and night, is the first step that we need to understand. And why should we recognize in that way? A person without this change is either always in the night or in the light, right? A wise man should bring the day into night and night into the day. And that brings about equability at all conditions. So, how to bring night into day and day into night? So, a wise man should think that even in the darkness, should always feel there is light, that this stage passes. And even in the light, should always feel the necessity of resting, to take rest, to stop from things what he is doing. So, if you recognize the necessity of rest at the day and the hope of light in the dark, then you are a wise man. You can bring an equability. You can see both day and night in an equal, with equal respect and as something that is necessary in your life. Recognize that this law of periodicity, that change will come and we will be ready to meet them. When the mood of indifference comes, we must recognize it as necessary resting phase to, to be more strong for the day of light to come ahead. It's a wonderful statement. So whenever you're going through a phase of indifference, means nothing is fascinating, nothing is interested for you. When you're going through that phase of indifference and less enthusiasm and lack of interest, you need to see that as a necessary resting phase so that you come with more strong, with more enthusiasm and more interest for the light that comes after that for the next day. So why do you sleep? You become tired and you sleep. You don't want to do any work because you want to go to sleep. So that you will be more strong for the next day with more capabilities, with more ability for the next day. So to recognize this phase of less enthusiasm and less in our interest, lack of interest, as a necessary state or of resting period is what we need to first learn how to see that. And then once you recognize that uh, this this phase of uh, this phase of less enthusiasm and lack of interest, this phase of resting is very much necessary. Once you recognize that, then you feel something that was more beautiful in the daytime under the sunlight may not be as beautiful as shiny in the night, because there is no sunlight, right? Something, a statue or a flower or something, I mean, which any particular thing you take it for that matter, might have appeared so bright and beautiful in the daytime. But in the night, when there is no light, it's not so beautiful, it's not so shiny. But once you recognize this phase of darkness is very much necessary, you still think that thing, even in the darkness, is beautiful. The beauty has not changed just because there is no light. It get back its beauty, it get back its shining nature once the light comes back. There's a beautiful tree, right? So in the darkness, you may not see the tree. But once there is sunlight, once the sun rises, you see that beauty again. That beauty comes back again. So any ideal, any great cause that you're working for, maybe a service, maybe uh, your work in this spiritual field, any great cause that you're working, should you need to sustain the beauty of it. You need to sustain the the purpose of what you're doing, even when you are undergoing this phase of darkness, even when you're finding it less enthusiastic, lack of interest, depressed, going through the phase of darkness. But you need to recognize the ideal for which you're working, the purpose for which you're working, and you need to think that the beauty remains there and gets back or appears when there is light, when this phase of darkness passes away. So in that way, you will come back more strong. Once you pass through this phase of darkness, you come out more strong, you come out more enthusiastic, with more interest towards that ideal which you're working, uh, towards that service which you were involved in. So something that is beautiful at day is always beautiful at night, even though there is no light. But you need to wait for the light. You need to wait for the phase of darkness to pass in order to see that beauty. So we must try to raise above this uh, passing phase of darkness and wait for the light to shine on the beauty. So this is how we sustain our interest, we sustain our, we keep a goal, we keep going in the path of or whatever we need to achieve in our life. Only when we can keep that ideal or that goal, the beauty of that, and wait, if at all we are passing through a phase of darkness, through a phase of less enthusiasm and interest, to wait until the light shine upon us, to wait until the light of wisdom to shine upon us, to allow this phase to pass on, to recognize that phase as a resting phase in the first hand, to come more strong, and at the same time not to lose hope on that beauty, to always keep that now there is no light and hence this particular thing is not appearing beautiful for me. But once that light come back, it the beauty will definitely shine, right? We will never lose hope. So in the evening, when we see something which is beautiful, uh, and then there is darkness and we are still there, and that thing is not shining anymore. But do we lose hope for the next day? Do we think that this is the last day that this thing appears beautiful? No. We still have that hope that next day when the sunlight comes back, this thing will appear beautiful again, and I can still see the beauty. So to recognize that passing darkness as a resting period, and to keep hope on that beauty, on that ideal to which you are working, uh, is what uh, the third thing that you need to do when there is this change of moods, that or the swing of mood that you are passing through. Only then you keep the interest, you sustain the interest, and then you come back more strong for the next day as this phase of darkness passes away. So these are the two ways by which you can deal with these changing moods. One is the emotional way, and the other is the intellectual way. Emotional way is not to allow your oversensitive emotions, your oversensitive emotional plane to react towards things that are not in your hand, that that are happening beyond your capacity, and to not to allow that to fall upon you, to recognize that as a universal law, to recognize that anything that is happening is for the good, to be fearless, and to prepare yourself for any kind of help that you can do at that state is one thing. That's the emotional level. And the other thing is the intellectual level. At the intellectual level, to recognize that law of periodicity, that law of rhythm, that something which is inevitable and which is necessary as there is day and night, to find the darkness in the light and to find that light in the darkness, to recognize both as necessary phases of life, and to sustain the interest and hope for that beauty even in the darkness, to sustain the interest for the next day when there is light, light is back. So all these things works at the intellectual level. So both at emotional and at intellectual level, you work to recognize these passing clouds, these changing moods, and this changing state of mind in yourself, and then you work upon it, and then you not allow these things to depress you too much, to make you uh, fall into depression, so that you will never come back again with enthusiasm, or you will never come back again with a good mood. So once you recognize these passing moods and you try to work on them at both at emotional and intellectual level, then what happens is, then you try to attempt uh, day by day, uh, we realize ourselves as eternal and changeless, and to put aside ourselves from anything that is changing. So once you develop this habit at both the emotional and at the intellectual level, of not allowing these changing of mood, this phase of darkness to affect you, only then you feel that you are, yourself is eternal, it is changeless, and it's not that you yourself that is changing, but it's your lower self, your lower bodies, that they are undergoing these phases of darkness. And if you can take away yourself from that phase of changing, and you feel that you are not changing, you are eternal, you are changeless, but your lower self, your lower bodies is what that is undergoing these changes, and you reach that state by with the help of these two methods that Dr. Besant has said. And once you feel I am the changeless, the eternal self, and let this be a constant music that keeps playing in the background throughout your daily labor. So this kind of feeling should be the music that is playing in your background, that it's not you who is changing. You are changeless, you are eternal, and it's your lower bodies that are undergoing these changes. And then not to allow those changes, those depressed state or the high enthusiastic or a high elated state to affect you, and to keep yourself in a constant phase, that will help you to be in peace throughout your life. And that feeling of uh, feeling to recognize that you are changeless and you are eternal should be a background music throughout your life. So, to conclude, Madam Besant says that uh, what should be our attitude is our attitude should be let me see what I can learn from the changing experience. What useful lesson for myself or for helping others I can gain from this experience, which the lower part of me, which the lower bodies of me is passing through. Then you feel that these changing moods are actually our best teachers. They teach us a lot. We shall value them rather than dislike them. We try to subdue them and not allow to overtake us, and at the same time learn from them. The more we look on all in the clear light of wisdom, the more peaceful will our lives become. The more these moods are to understand others, for helping them, the more shall we raise above them as enemies until they become our friends. I leave at these words of Madam Besant and I open the session for question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really a very good walkthrough. This dictum or this write-up on the modes is actually a very, very small write-up. It's only like 19 paragraph literature. But for those who have the polarities on the modes and those lives which is running through the mood swings, for them, it's a very, very, very big instrument. And at the last paragraph, which is in the 19th paragraph, where she talks about service and helping humanity, the way how you handle the moods and then how you transcend it as a service to humanity, and then how you also help others to uplift and come out of this mood swings is very beautifully illustrated by Annie Besant. So I hope that everybody reads it, and with Pradeep's illustrations and with Pradeep's uh, um, speech, if we have any questions, the floor is open. So all of us are working towards going beyond the modes. Any thoughts you would like to share, anyone?
Maybe the delegates can come out of the silent mood and share some words and
Can come out
feedbacks.
of the darkness of no video.
Yeah.
Can allow some light to shine upon us by
Yes.
switching on your videos. It's very nice to see you, Shikhaji, after a very long time.
Yes.
I hope your stay in Colombia was very fruitful and happy.
Yes.
Welcome
very
back.
much.
Welcome back to India.
Thank you, and hope to see you in Adyar and convention.
Yes, very much. I'll be there for both the youth convention and also the international convention.
Well, at least I would like to share. Yeah, it was very nice that fortunate that I was able to attend today's session, because moods are something that all of us are familiar with, and very often we are victims of it, and very often we are the perpetrators to others. And I think the only thing we can do is not to become biased or prejudiced about a person based on the mood, which is a temporary thing. And that temporary state of mind may be due to some stress, irritation, or depression. So not to make images of a person based on a mood. And yeah, also, I think the hormonal changes in the body are one reasons creating different kinds of moods in different like ages of life or different people. So that is also one thing. Well, but oh yeah, sure, Pradeep.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this thought came to my mind that why did Madam Besant not speak about the hormones in this entire chapter? But we should all know that whenever we read any theosophical literature or any speech, we should know the date. That's why I always say this speech was given in 1904. Go back to 1904. Go back to that period of time. Go back to that period of time when how much science was developed. 1904, nobody knew that a Titanic ship will be built and it will go from UK to US. Nobody felt that a huge ship can be built. How much of science was developed at that stage? What was the importance given to the things that we feel? Even kids talk now. Kids speak about hormones. Kids speak about antibiotics. Kids speak about the the various kinds of medicine that we take for various diseases. Even kids say that, oh, paracetamol, I want paracetamol, I feel fever. What is paracetamol? When did we started hearing about this word, right? So then I recognized we should recognize that she gave this speech in 1904, but she might not have used the word hormones, but she has very much spoken about nerves. So that was the development of science. That was the understanding of our human body at that state, that nerves. But that's not complete, but that's not, I don't say it's incorrect, but it's half thing. That's all was available at that time. That's all information was available. Now we know that these nerves act upon the messengers. And these messengers, now we know that they are chemicals. And now we know that they are specific hormones. As a biologist, I go back to how much of biology was known to people in 1904. That is 118 years back. I should see that. And then probably when we are dealing with this subject of something which was given by a person at 100 years back and telling to youngsters at this stage, I think it's a mistake from my side that we need to explain to them of the current developments, of the current usage. And I usually in a study class give what has been given by the speaker. I don't dilute it. I don't add myself into it. But now I got an opportunity, and I should say that the nerves, what she mean is through these hormonal, what science we have understood right now. And it's okay to give a current interpretation of what the speakers have given at that state of time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
हेलो शिखर जी, सुषमा श्रीवास्तव।
Yes, Sushma ji.
हाँ, ये बहुत अच्छी प्रस्तुति थी प्रदीप जी की। मुझे राधा जी का एक आर्टिकल याद आ गया जो उन्होंने लिखा था, और उसमें लॉ ऑफ पीरियोडिसिटी की बात की थी। उन्होंने कहा था कि एवरीडे लाइफ में हम चैलेंजेस हमारे आते हैं, चाहे सोसाइटी से रिलेटेड, चाहे पर्सनल चैलेंजेस, और हम उसको रिस्पॉन्ड करते रहते हैं। लेकिन एक स्थिति आती है कि हम एग्जॉर्शन की स्थिति में आ जाते हैं, सरेंडर कर देते हैं। लेकिन उस समय वो राधा जी फिलोसफर टॉयनबी को रेफर करती है। वो कहती हैं कि जब ऐसी स्थिति आए तो विड्रॉल हो जाना चाहिए, विड्रॉ कर लेना चाहिए, और विड्रॉ वाली स्थिति में सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन के साथ फिर जो है हमको एग्जिट करना चाहिए, निर्गमन करना चाहिए। और तब हम निर्गमन करते हैं तो इस विड्रॉल और एग्जिट, विड्रॉल एंड एग्जिट, विड्रॉल एंड एग्जिट, इसके माध्यम से जब हम अपना सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन और फिर और ग्रेट एनर्जी के साथ सोसाइटी में आते हैं, तभी सोसाइटी की ग्रोथ होती है और लार्जर सेंस में ह्यूमैनिटी की ग्रोथ होती है। तो मुझे राधा जी का वो आर्टिकल याद आ गया, तो उन्होंने कहा कि दिन के बाद रात और सुबह के बाद रात होती है। तो इस संदर्भ में मुझे राधा जी की बात याद आई, तो मैं शेयर करना चाहती थी। थैंक यू सो मच प्रदीप जी, बहुत सुंदर प्रस्तुति थी आपकी, बहुत क्लियर एक्सपोजिशन था।
थैंक यू।
शायद मैंने हिंदी में बोला तो आप
मैं ट्रांसलेट कर लेता हूँ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
We all understand.
That's it.
We all understand.
Accordingly, that moment of withdrawals, there is a very elaborate explanation which the masters have given. So part of discipleship they have mentioned about the dark night of the soul. They call this as dark night of the soul. So they have explained it in the path of discipleship and also in the masters and the path on this aspect of withdrawals and taking some rest. So since we are 7 minutes beyond the schedule and no questions further, can we go for a conclusion?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mathurnath, for being a
We should
great
say
host.
thanks. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. So let's get back and close our eyes. Take some deep breath. Center yourselves. Oh. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramayaha. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschid Dukhavag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I pray you all have a very conscious weekend and a very conscious week ahead. And let us meet for the next meeting next week. Till then, it's bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.